In the vast emptiness of space, where stars were merely pinpricks against the endless void, humanity had finally reached beyond their solar system. It had taken centuries of technological advancement, countless sacrifices, and an unwavering determination that defined the species. Yet even as they expanded to nearby star systems, establishing colonies on distant worlds, humans remained painfully aware of their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The galaxy, as it turned out, was already claimed. The great empires, species who had mastered interstellar travel millennia before Earth's first rocket breached its atmosphere, had carved the universe into territories, spheres of influence that spanned thousands of light years. The Xeraxians, with their hive-mind consciousness and biomechanical technology, controlled the galactic core and its surrounding systems. The Vidians, mysterious beings of pure energy, claimed the nebula-rich regions of the Outer Rim. Dozens of other empires filled the spaces between, each with technologies so advanced they seemed like magic to human observers. Humanity had been permitted to exist, much as one might permit a colony of ants to thrive in a garden's corner. Curious, perhaps even admirable in their industry, but ultimately insignificant. The great empires allowed human colonies within a small region of space, a mere 100 light-years across, a territory so insignificant it wasn't worth the resources to conquer. At least, that had been the calculation. Commander Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Valiant, Earth's newest warship, watching the holographic display as it rendered the surrounding space in perfect detail. The vessel represented humanity's greatest achievement, a marvel of engineering that had taken 20 years to design and build. Yet even this pride of the human fleet would be considered little more than a curiosity to the great empires, an amusing trinket created by a primitive species. Status report. Ward commanded, his voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. Lieutenant Alex Foster, a young officer with a reputation for brilliance under pressure, responded without looking up from her console. All systems nominal, Commander. The new shield generators are operating at optimal capacity. Weapon systems are primed and ready. Ward nodded, his steely gaze fixed on the display. The Valiant was positioned at the edge of human space, a frontier that had remained unchallenged for decades. Until now. Any change in the Zorasian fleet's position? He asked. Negative, sir. They remain in formation at the edge of the Arcturus system. No movement detected in the past 6 hours. The information wasn't surprising. The Xeraxians were methodical, rarely acting without careful deliberation. Their fleet, 12 vessels of varying sizes, each capable of obliterating a small moon, had appeared 3 days ago, positioning themselves just beyond the boundary of human territory. They hadn't engaged, hadn't communicated. They simply waited, a silent threat that had sent waves of panic through the human colonies. Intelligence suggested this was merely the vanguard of a much larger force. The Zorasian Empire had recently concluded a territorial dispute with the Vidians, and now, flush with victory, they were turning their attention to the insignificant human territories they had previously ignored. Sir, Foster spoke again, her voice dropping slightly. Are we really going to engage them? The Zorasian ships outmass us by a factor of at least 20. Their weapons technology is centuries beyond ours. Ward didn't answer immediately. The question had been asked countless times in private briefings, in war rooms on Earth, in whispered conversations throughout the fleet. The answer had always been the same. Lieutenant, we have no choice. If we retreat, the Xeraxians will interpret it as weakness. They'll move on our colonies within hours. Ward's gaze remained fixed on the display. This isn't just about the Arcturus system. This is about humanity's future among the stars. The bridge fell silent, each officer absorbed in their duties, the gravity of the situation weighing on them all. The Valiant represented humanity's best chance, perhaps their only chance, to demonstrate that they were not simply ants to be brushed aside when convenient. Ward's communicator chimed softly. Commander, Dr. Reed requests your presence in engineering. Acknowledged. Ward turned to his second-in-command. Commander Torres, you have the bridge. Maintain position and alert me immediately if there's any change in the Zorsian fleet. The journey to engineering took Ward through the heart of the Valiant. The ship was a testament to human ingenuity. Every system redundantly backed up, every component crafted with precision that would have been impossible just decades earlier. Yet what made the Valiant truly unique wasn't visible to the naked eye. Dr. Livia. Reed greeted Ward as he entered engineering, her usual composed demeanor replaced by barely contained excitement. Reed was in her mid-50s, with silver-streaked dark hair and the intense focus of someone who regularly forgot to eat or sleep when working on a problem. Commander, the final calibrations are complete. She gestured to a bank of specialized equipment that occupied a significant portion of the engineering bay. The quantum displacement matrix is stable. We can deploy the weapon at your command. The weapon, officially designated as the Quantum Phase Disruptor, it was the result of decades of secret research, a technology that had been developed in isolation from the prying sensors of the galactic empires. It was humanity's ace in the hole, a gamble on which they were betting their future. And you're confident it will work? Ward asked, examining the readouts. Reed's expression hardened. As confident as I can be without a full-scale test. The simulations are promising. The energy signatures should be undetectable until the moment of deployment, and by then, she didn't need to finish the sentence. By then, it would be too late for the Zoraxians to counter. Very well. Ward nodded. Be ready to deploy on my command. We'll be moving within range within the next 12 hours. As Ward turned to leave, Reed caught his arm. Commander, you should know, once we use this, there's no going back. The other empires will learn of its existence. We'll change the balance of power in ways we can't predict. Ward looked into her eyes, seeing the concern there. Dr. Reed, the balance of power has never included us. It's time we change that. The plan was simple in concept, though complex in execution. The Valiant would approach the Zorsian fleet under the pretense of diplomatic engagement, a final attempt to negotiate before the inevitable invasion. The Zoraxians, confident in their superiority, would allow the approach, perhaps curious to observe human desperation firsthand. And when the Valiant was in position, they would deploy the weapon. Ward returned to the bridge to find the atmosphere had changed. The tension remained, but there was a new undercurrent of determination. Word had spread throughout the ship. Not the details, but enough for the crew to understand that they weren't simply on a suicide mission. Commander, incoming transmission from Fleet Admiral Hale, announced the communications officer. Ward nodded. Put him through. The holographic display shifted, rendering the image of Admiral Marcus Hale, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defensive Forces. Hale's weathered face bore the lines of someone who had spent decades preparing for this inevitable confrontation. Commander Ward, status report. The Valiant is prepared for engagement. Admiral. Dr. Reed has confirmed the weapon system is operational. We're awaiting your final authorization to proceed. Hale's expression remained impassive, but Ward could see the weight of responsibility in his eyes. You understand what's at stake here, Commander. Not just the Arcturus system, but the future of our species. I do, sir. The Zoraxians have dominated this galaxy for millennia. They view us as nothing more than a temporary annoyance, a primitive species to be dealt with at their convenience. Hale's voice hardened. It's time we showed all of them, that humanity will not be so easily dismissed. Yes, sir. You have your authorization, Commander. Proceed with the operation. Hale paused and added an Elias. Godspeed. The transmission ended, leaving Ward with the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. He turned to the helm. Set course for the Zorsian fleet. 1/4 impulse power. Communications. Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies when we reach the halfway point. The Valiant moved with graceful precision, its advanced propulsion systems barely disturbing the surrounding space. On the bridge, officers monitored their stations with the focused intensity of people who understood the historical significance of their actions. Lieutenant Foster approached Ward, speaking quietly. Sir, I've been analyzing the Zorsian formation. Their ships are positioned to maximize weapons coverage, but there's a slight vulnerability in their lower quadrant. If we approach from that angle, we might gain a few critical seconds before they can bring their main batteries to bear. Ward considered this. Good work, Lieutenant. Adjust our approach vector accordingly. As the Valiant closed half the distance to the Zorsian fleet, Ward gave the order. Open a channel. All frequencies, standard translation protocols. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Ward stepped forward, his posture straight, his voice clear and unwavering. Attention, Zorsian command vessel. This is Commander Elias Ward of the Earth Defense Ship Valiant. We request direct communication to discuss your presence at our territorial boundary. For several moments, there was no response. The Zorsian vessels maintained their formation, silent and imposing against the backdrop of stars. Then, suddenly, the main display flickered and an image appeared. The Zorsian commander was a massive entity, its body a fusion of organic and mechanical components. Multiple eyes blinked in unsynchronized patterns, and when it spoke, the translation matrix converted the complex series of clicks and vibrations into human language. Human vessel, your request for discussion is acknowledged. Your approach is permitted. Be advised that any aggressive action will result in immediate destruction. The dismissive tone was evident even through the translator. The Zorsian commander didn't consider the Valiant a threat, merely in curiosity, perhaps even in amusement. Understood, Ward replied. We approach under peaceful conditions. The communication ended, and Ward turned to his officers. Continue approach. Maintain weapon systems in standby mode. Dr. Reed, status of the quantum displacement matrix. Reed's voice came through the intercom. Ready for deployment, Commander. Awaiting your signal. The Valiant continued its approach, each moment bringing it closer to the massive Zorsian vessels. On the bridge, officers worked with quiet efficiency, though the tension was palpable. Entering optimal deployment range in 3 minutes, Foster announced. Ward nodded, then opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the commander. In moments, we will make history, not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. Whatever happens next, know that your service, your courage, has made this moment possible. He closed the channel and turned to the weapons officer. Prepare to deploy the quantum phase disruptor on my mark. Target the Zorsian command vessel. The bridge fell silent as the final seconds ticked away. The massive Zorsian ships loomed larger in the view screen, their complex architecture a testament to the advanced civilization that had built them. In range, Foster announced. Ward took a deep breath. Deploy weapon. There was no visible beam, no dramatic explosion. For a brief moment, it seemed as though nothing had happened at all. Then, reality itself seemed to shudder. A ripple of distorted space-time emanated from the Valiant, passing through the Zorsian fleet like a wave through water. Where it touched, matter screamed in protest, fundamental forces temporarily unbound from their natural laws. The effect on the Zorsian ships was immediate and catastrophic. Hull metals twisted and warped, energy systems overloaded, and propulsion drives imploded. The command vessel, bearing the brunt of the attack, simply came apart, its structure collapsing into itself as the quantum displacement effect rewrote the rules of physics within its domain. On the bridge of the Valiant, stunned silence gave way to frantic activity as officers assessed the damage they had inflicted. Status of the Zorsian fleet? Ward demanded. Foster's voice was almost a whisper. Command vessel destroyed, sir. 3 support ships heavily damaged, systems failing. The remainder appeared to be initiating emergency protocols. It had worked. The quantum phase disruptor had performed beyond even Reed's expectations, disrupting the very fabric of reality within its targeted area, rendering Zorsian technology that had dominated the galaxy for millennia, suddenly, catastrophically vulnerable. Ward allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before reality reasserted itself. Maintain defensive posture. The remaining ships may still pose a threat. But the Zorsian response wasn't what anyone had expected. The undamaged vessels were not launching a counterattack. Instead, they were retreating, pulling back at maximum speed, abandoning their damaged companions without hesitation. "They're running," someone whispered on the bridge. Ward's expression remained grim. "They're regrouping, and they're sending a message to the rest of their fleet." The implications were clear. The Valiant had won this engagement, but the war was far from over. Once word of the human weapon spread throughout the Zorasian Empire, they would return in force, prepared for this new threat. "Send a message to Admiral Hale," Ward ordered. "Inform him of our success and request reinforcements. We need to secure this region before the Zoraxians return." As a message was dispatched, Ward turned his attention to the damaged Zorasian vessels. "Scan those ships. I want to know everything about them, crew status, remaining capabilities, anything that might give us an advantage in the next engagement." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as the Valiant secured the immediate area. The damaged Zorasian vessels, unable to retreat with their companions, had initiated self-destruct sequences rather than risk capture. It was a standard protocol. Among the advanced species, denying their technology to lesser races was paramount. Ward ordered his ship to maintain a safe distance, observing as the Zorasian vessels consumed themselves in brilliant flashes of energy. Each explosion represented thousands of years of technological advancement, knowledge that humanity could have spent generations studying. "A waste," Reed commented, having joined Ward on the bridge. "But predictable. The Zoraxians have always viewed their technology as sacred, not to be defiled by species they consider primitive." Ward nodded, his gaze fixed on the dissipating energy clouds. "How long before they return, do you think?" Reed considered this. "Hard to say. Their nearest major fleet is stationed in the Cygnus sector, perhaps 2 days at their maximum speed. But they'll be cautious now. They'll want to understand what happened before committing more resources. So we have some time," Ward mused. "Time to prepare, to position our other ships." "Commander," Foster interrupted, her voice urgent. "New contacts approaching from Sector 7. Multiple signatures, moving at high speed." Ward tensed. "Zorasian reinforcements already?" "Negative, sir." Foster's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "These are Vidian vessels." The revelation sent a jolt through the bridge. The Vidians, the energy-based species that controlled vast territories in the Outer Rim, had maintained a neutral stance toward humanity. Neither hostile nor particularly friendly. They had simply acknowledged human existence and otherwise kept their distance. Why would the Vidians be here? Reed wondered aloud. This isn't their territory. Ward's mind raced through the possibilities. They must have detected the quantum displacement effect. That kind of disturbance in space-time would be impossible to miss for a species as attuned to energy patterns as the Vidians. "They're hailing us, sir," the communications officer announced. Ward straightened his uniform. On screen, the display shifted, and Ward found himself facing a being of pure luminescence. The Vidian representative had assumed a vaguely humanoid form, though its edges shifted and flowed like liquid light. "Commander of the human vessel." The Vidian's voice resonated directly in the minds of everyone on the bridge, a telepathic communication that the ship's systems rendered as audible speech. "We have observed your confrontation with the Zorasian fleet. Your technology is unexpected." Ward maintained a composed expression despite the shock of direct mental contact. "We protect what is ours. The Zoraxians threatened our territory." The Vidian's form pulsed, colors shifting in patterns that seemed to indicate consideration. "The balance of power has long been established in this galaxy. Your species was not considered a significant factor in that equation." "Perhaps that was a miscalculation," Ward replied evenly. Indeed, the Vidian's form stabilized, its light dimming slightly. "The Zoraxians will return, Commander. They will not accept this defeat. They cannot afford to, lest other species begin to question their dominance. We're prepared for that possibility." The Vidian's light pulsed again. "Are you?" The Zorasian Empire spans thousands of systems. Their fleets number in the millions. Your weapon, impressive though it may be, cannot stand against such might. Ward felt a chill at the assessment, but maintained his confident demeanor. Why are you here, Representative? To warn us? To threaten us? To observe? And perhaps to consider. Consider what? Alternatives. The Vidian's form expanded slightly. The Zorasian dominance has gone unchallenged for too long. Their expansion threatens even species as advanced as our own. Your weapon represents a potential shift in the established order. Ward began to understand. You're suggesting an alliance. Not yet, the Vidian clarified. But we will watch what unfolds here with great interest. Should your species demonstrate continued resilience against the Zorasian response, further discussion may be warranted. With that cryptic statement, the communication ended, the Vidian's glowing form disappearing from the screen. Lieutenant Foster let out a long breath. Did that just happen? Are the Vidians actually considering siding with us? Not siding with us, Ward corrected. Using us. They see our weapon as a means to check Zorasian power without directly confronting them themselves. Reed nodded in agreement. It's logical. The Vidians and Zoraxians have maintained an uneasy balance for millennia, neither willing to risk open warfare, both content to expand in different directions. Our weapon changes that calculation. Ward turned to the communications officer. Send everything we've learned to Admiral Hale. The strategic implications are significant. As the Valiant maintained its position near the debris field that had once been Zorasian warships, Ward retreated to his ready room to consider their next moves. The initial victory had been more complete than anyone had dared hope, but it was only the beginning. The Zoraxians would return, and next time, they would be prepared. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Commander, Admiral Hale is responding to our update. Put him through. Hale's holographic image appeared, his expression a mixture of triumph and concern. Commander Ward, congratulations on your successful engagement. The quantum phase disruptor performed even better than our simulations predicted. Thank you, Admiral. But the Zoraxians will adapt. We need to prepare for their response. Already underway, Commander. The Defiant and the Intrepid are en route to your position. They'll arrive within 18 hours. Both have been equipped with prototype versions of the quantum phase disruptor. Ward felt a surge of hope at this news. 3 ships equipped with the revolutionary weapon would be a formidable defense, even against a larger Zorasian force. And the Vidians? Hale asked. Your report mentioned their interest in our technology. They're playing a long game, Admiral. They want to see if we can truly challenge the Zoraxians before they commit to anything. Hale nodded. As expected, the Vidians have always been calculating in their diplomacy. Still, even their tacit support could be valuable. He paused, his expression growing more serious. The President has been briefed. The Security Council is in emergency session. What you've accomplished today, Elias, it changes everything. Not just our strategy against the Zoraxians, but our place in the galactic community. For better or worse, Ward noted. Indeed, Hale's image flickered slightly as he leaned forward. Hold your position, Commander. Defend that system at all costs. What happens in the next few days will determine humanity's future among the stars. The communication ended, leaving Ward alone with his thoughts. He moved to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zoraxians were mobilizing, their hive-mind consciousness burning with a collective rage at the humiliation they had suffered at human hands. They would return, and when they did, they would bring enough firepower to reduce every human colony to ash. Unless the Valiant and its sister ships could prove that humanity's first victory wasn't a fluke, the humans had earned their place among the stars, not through millennia of gradual advancement, but through innovation and the courage to challenge the established order. Ward's communicator chimed. Commander, long-range sensors are detecting multiple warp signatures emerging from the direction of the Zorasian homeworlds. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. Sooner than expected. The Zoraxians were committing significant resources to this response, drawing ships from their core territories rather than waiting for the nearest fleet to regroup. Understood. Alert all departments. Battle stations in 4 hours. Ward returned to the bridge, where the crew was already preparing for the coming confrontation. The atmosphere was different now. Tense, certainly, but underlined with a confidence that had been absent before. They had faced the Zoraxians once and emerged victorious. They could do it again. Status of the quantum phase disruptor? Ward asked as Dr. Reed entered the bridge. Fully recharged and recalibrated based on the data from our first deployment. We've managed to increase efficiency by approximately 12%. The effect should be even more pronounced this time. Ward nodded. And what about multiple targets? The incoming Zorasian force will be larger than what we faced before. Reed's expression tightened. That's the problem, Commander. The disruptor can only target a specific area of space-time. Against a scattered formation, its effectiveness will be limited. It was the answer War had expected, but it still presented a tactical challenge. Then we'll need to draw them into a tighter formation. Make them concentrate their forces. And how do we do that? Foster asked from her station. The Zoraxians aren't fools. They'll have analyzed our previous encounter. Ward considered this. We use their own psychology against them. The Zoraxians value hierarchy and dominance above all else. Their response will be led by a high-ranking commander, someone tasked with avenging their previous defeat. If we can identify that command vessel and provoke its commander directly, they'll want to lead the attack personally, Reed finished, understanding dawning. Their honor would demand it. Exactly. And where the commander goes, the fleet follows. Ward turned to the tactical station. Begin analyzing the approaching Zorasian signatures. Look for the vessel with the strongest energy output and the most extensive communication patterns. That will be our target. The hours passed with grim determination as the Valiant prepared for the coming battle. Weapon systems were checked and rechecked, shield emitters calibrated to their maximum efficiency, and the quantum phase disruptor primed for deployment. When the Zorasian fleet emerged from warp, the sensors confirmed their worst fears. 20 vessels, each dwarfing the Valiant in size and firepower, arranged in a loose formation that would make it impossible to target more than 2 or 3 with a single deployment of the disruptor. They've learned, Foster observed grimly. They're keeping their distance from each other. Ward studied the formation. Have you identified the command vessel? Yes, sir. The central ship, slightly larger than the others. It's maintaining a communication link with all other vessels in the fleet. Ward nodded. Open a channel. Target the command vessel specifically. The communications officer worked as console. Channel open, sir. Ward stood, his posture rigid, his voice carrying the authority of his position. Zorasian command vessel. This is Commander Elias Ward of the Earth Defense Ship Valiant. I address your fleet commander directly. For a moment, there was no response. Then the view screen flickered to life, revealing a Zorasian even larger and more imposing than the commander they had faced previously. Its biomechanical body gleamed with embedded technology, and its multiple eyes focused with predatory intensity. Human, the translation rendered the complex series of sounds. Your previous victory was an aberration, a temporary advantage gained through deception. It will not be repeated. Ward met the alien's gaze without flinching. If you believe that, then face me directly. Ship to ship, or do the mighty Zoraxians now fear a species they once dismissed as primitive? The Zorasian commander's eyes flashed, a visual indication of rage that transcended species differences. You dare challenge me? I am Supreme War Leader Xarl, conqueror of the Andromeda colonies, destroyer of the Tachyon Rebellion. Planets have burned at my command, and yet here you hide behind your fleet, afraid to confront a single human vessel. Ward's voice dripped with contempt. Perhaps the Zorasian Empire is not as mighty as the galaxy believes. The translator struggled to capture the sounds of fury emanating from the Zorasian commander. Your arrogance exceeds even your ignorance, human. You will witness the true might of the Zorasian Empire firsthand. The communication ended abruptly. Bold strategy, Reed commented quietly. Let's hope it works. The Zorasian fleet began to move, shifting formation. The command vessel surged forward, pulling ahead of the supporting ships. It's working, Foster reported. The command vessel is advancing. 3 heavy cruisers are moving to support it, maintaining close formation. Ward allowed himself a small smile. Zorsian pride. As predictable as it is useful. He turned to the helm. Bring us about. Make it look like we're preparing to retreat. The Valiant rotated, its engines flaring as it appeared to turn away from the advancing Zorsian ships. They're increasing speed, Foster reported. The command vessel and its escorts are breaking from the main fleet, pursuing us directly. Ward nodded. Maintain course until they commit fully to the pursuit. Then execute maneuver Theta on my mark. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each officer understanding their role in the complex dance that was about to unfold. The Valiant continued its apparent retreat, drawing the Zorsian command group further from the safety of their main fleet. Command vessel is now 15,000 kilometers from the main fleet and closing on our position rapidly, Foster announced. Prepare the quantum phase disruptor, Ward ordered. Target the center of the command group. Disruptor ready, sir. Reed confirmed from her station. Optimal firing solution calculated. Ward watched the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The Zorsian command vessel and its 3 escorts had formed a tight pursuit formation, exactly as he had hoped. The rest of the fleet was following, but still too distant to provide immediate support. Now, Ward commanded, execute maneuver Theta and deploy the disruptor. The Valiant suddenly reversed course, its advanced engines allowing it to pivot with a speed that would have been impossible for a larger vessel. It rotated to face the oncoming Zorsian ships and accelerated directly toward them. The maneuver caught the Ziraxians by surprise. Their massive ships attempted to adjust course, but their size made rapid changes in direction challenging. Deploying quantum phase disruptor, Reed announced. Once again, there was no visible beam, no dramatic energy discharge, just a subtle ripple in the fabric of space-time that expanded outward from the Valiant, engulfing the Zorsian command group in its effect. The results were even, more spectacular than their first engagement. The Zorsian command vessel seemed to shudder, its hull plating rippling as though suddenly liquid. Energy surged through its systems in uncontrolled bursts, venting into space in brilliant coronas of blue-white power. The 3 escort vessels suffered similar effects, their structures compromised by fundamental forces suddenly operating according to different rules. In the space of 30 seconds, the pride of the Zorsian fleet was reduced to expanding clouds of debris and dissipating energy. Direct hit, Foster reported, her voice steady despite the destruction they had just unleashed. Command vessel and all 3 escorts destroyed. No survivors detected. Ward didn't allow himself to celebrate. Bring us about. Prepare for engagement with the remainder of the fleet. But the expected counterattack didn't materialize. The remaining Zorsian vessels, witnessing the destruction of their command group, hesitated. Without the direct leadership of Supreme War Leader Xarl, the hierarchical command structure that defined Zorsian military operations had been disrupted. Sir, the Zorsian fleet is breaking formation, Foster reported with disbelief. Multiple vessels are engaging warp drives. Ward watched as, one by one, the massive Zorsian warships turned away and accelerated to warp speed, abandoning the battle entirely. They're retreating, Reed whispered. I never thought I'd see it. Ziraxians don't retreat. They do now, Ward replied, his voice quiet but firm. Status of the quantum phase disruptor? Recharging, sir. It will be approximately 40 minutes before we can deploy it again. Ward nodded. Maintain battle stations. I want continuous sensor sweeps of the entire system. The remaining Zorsian vessels might regroup once they've had time to establish a new command hierarchy. As the hours passed without any sign of the Zorsian fleet returning, the crew of the Valiant began to accept that they had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced one of the galaxy's greatest powers to retreat. Admiral Hale's reaction to the news was equally stunned. They abandoned the field? The Ziraxians? Yes, sir, War confirmed. After we destroyed their command vessel, the remaining ships withdrew. Our long-range sensors indicate they've regrouped at a position approximately 2 light-years from our current location, but they're maintaining a defensive posture. No indication they're preparing to re-engage. Hale's expression was one of measured triumph. This changes everything, Commander. Not just for this conflict, but for humanity's position in the galactic community. The Zeraxians have dominated for so long that many species had come to believe they were invincible. You've proven otherwise. What happens now, Admiral? Now we negotiate from a position of strength. Hale's image leaned forward. The Defiant and the Intrepid will still rendezvous with you as planned. Hold your position and secure that system. I'll be dispatching diplomatic envoys immediately, not just to the Zeraxians, but to the Vidians and other major powers as well. You think the Zeraxians will actually negotiate? Hale's expression turned grim. They have no choice. The quantum phase disruptor represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power. They can't ignore that reality, no matter how much it galls them. After the communication ended, Ward made his way through the ship, stopping to speak with crew members, acknowledging their efforts and sacrifices. The mood throughout the Valiant was a complex mixture of elation, exhaustion, and disbelief. They had faced the most feared military force in the galaxy and emerged victorious, not once but twice. When he finally returned to his quarters, Ward allowed the weight of the past days to settle on him. They had won a tremendous victory, but the war was far from over. The Zeraxians would adapt, would develop countermeasures against the quantum phase disruptor. And even if peace was negotiated, humanity's sudden rise to prominence would introduce new challenges, new threats. A chime from his console interrupted his thoughts. Commander, we're detecting multiple ships entering the system. Configuration matches Earth Defense Fleet vessels. The Defiant and the Intrepid? Yes, sir. They're hailing us. I'll take it here. The communication screen activated, displaying the face of Captain Sarah Chun, commanding officer of the Defiant and one of Ward's oldest friends. Her expression was one of barely contained excitement. Elias, you magnificent bastard. I can't believe you actually did it. Ward smiled tiredly. Hello, Sarah. Welcome to the front lines. Front lines? For what I hear, there's not much of front left. You scattered the Zorasian fleet to the winds. Temporarily, they'll be back, and in greater numbers. Sarah's expression sobered. Always the optimist. But you're right. Of course. That's why we're here. Admiral Hales ordered us to establish a defensive perimeter around the Arcturus system. The Intrepid Captain Morgan and I are under your command for the duration. Ward nodded. Have our tactical officers contact Lieutenant Foster. We'll need to coordinate our deployment of the quantum phase disruptors if the Zeraxians return in force. Already underway. Sarah paused, studying him. How does it feel, Elias? Being the commander who finally showed the galaxy that humans aren't to be trifled with. Ward considered the question. Ask me when it's over, Sarah. This is just the beginning. Over the next several days, the 3 human vessels maintained their position in the Arcturus system, sensors constantly scanning for any sign of Zorasian activity. The enemy fleet remained at its position 2 light years distant, neither advancing nor retreating further. Then, 5 days after the second confrontation, a new contact appeared at the edge of the system. Not Zorasian, not Vidian, but a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design. Unknown ship approaching, Foster reported. Configuration doesn't match any known registry in our database. Ward frowned. Origin? Difficult to determine, sir. It appears to be using some form of stealth technology that partially masks its energy signature. But based on trajectory, it's coming from the direction of the galactic core. Weapons status? No weapons signatures detected, Commander. They're approaching at sublight speed, no aggressive posture evident. Ward considered this new development. With tensions already high, the arrival of an unknown vessel added another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Open a channel when they're in range, he ordered, and alert the Defiant and Intrepid to maintain defensive positions. The unknown vessel continued its approach, maintaining a steady course directly toward the human fleet. As it drew closer, details became clearer. Its hull was composed of a material that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, giving it a shadow-like appearance against the backdrop of stars. "They're hailing us," the communications officer announced. On screen, the view screen activated, revealing a being unlike any Ward had encountered before. Vaguely humanoid, but with elongated limbs and a head that featured no visible eyes, only a series of ridges that pulsed with soft light. When it spoke, the ship's translation matrix struggled momentarily before rendering its language intelligible. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Emissary Xylax of the Galactic Concord." Ward exchanged glances with Reed, who had joined him on the bridge. Neither had heard of such an entity. "I am Commander Elias Ward of the Earth Defense Ship Valiant. We are unfamiliar with the Galactic Concord." The being's head tilted slightly. This is not surprising. The Concord has remained hidden from younger races for millennia, observing but not interfering. Your recent actions, however, have necessitated a change in that policy. "Our actions," Ward repeated. "Your successful resistance against the Zorasian Empire." The being's tone remained neutral, giving no indication whether this was viewed positively or negatively. "This represents a significant disruption to the established order." Ward straightened. "The established order included the subjugation of my species. We chose not to accept that." Indeed, the being's ridges pulsed more rapidly. "And in doing so, you have accomplished what no species has managed in over 10,000 years. You have forced the Zoraxians to reconsider their position of dominance." "What exactly is the Galactic Concord?" Reed asked, stepping forward. "We are the oldest civilization still active in this galaxy," Xylax explained. "We withdrew from direct governance millennia ago, choosing instead to observe and occasionally guide from the shadows. The rise and fall of empires, the development of new species, these are natural cycles that we have witnessed countless times. And now," Ward pressed, "now we find ourselves in an unprecedented situation. Your quantum phase disruptor technology represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power. The Zoraxians, the Vidians, and other dominant species are scrambling to adapt to this new reality." Ward felt a chill. "Have you come to demand we surrender this technology?" The being's ridges dimmed momentarily. "No, Commander. We have come to offer you a place at the table." "What table?" "The conclave of species. For too long, the older races have dictated the fate of this galaxy. Your innovation suggests that perhaps it is time for new voices, new perspectives." Ward could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You're inviting humanity to join some sort of galactic council?" "The invitation extends beyond mere humanity, Commander. We believe it is time for a reassessment of how power is distributed throughout the galaxy. The younger races have demonstrated capabilities that the established powers have long dismissed." The implications were staggering. What had begun as a desperate defensive measure against an immediate threat had somehow catalyzed a shift in the very structure of galactic politics. "I'm not authorized to accept such an invitation," Ward said carefully. "This would require consultation with Earth's leadership." "Of course." Xylax's tone suggested this was expected. "We do not require an immediate answer. Indeed, the restructuring we envision will take decades, if not centuries, to fully implement. We merely wish to make initial contact, to acknowledge what you have achieved." Ward nodded. "And the Zoraxians? What position does the Concord take on our current conflict?" "We have already communicated with the Zorasian High Command," Xylax replied. "They have been encouraged to seek diplomatic solutions rather than military ones. Whether they heed this encouragement remains to be seen, but they are aware that continued aggression will not be viewed favorably by the Concord." It was diplomatic language, but the implication was clear. The mysterious Concord wielded sufficient influence to give even the mighty Zoraxians pause. "Thank you for this information, Emissary Xylax. I will relay your message to Earth's leadership immediately." The being's ridges pulsed once more. "We look forward to further dialogue, Commander Ward. Your species has taken its first steps onto a much larger stage. The journey ahead will not be easy, but it promises to be transformative." With that enigmatic statement, the communication ended. The bridge was silent for several moments as the crew processed what they had just witnessed. "Well," Reed finally said, "I think it's safe to say we've made an impression." Ward nodded slowly. "Contact Admiral Hale. He needs to hear about this immediately." The news of the Galactic Concorde's interest spread rapidly through Earth's leadership, causing equal parts excitement and trepidation. A previously unknown power had emerged from the shadows, seemingly prompted by humanity's defiance of the established order. 2 days later, as Ward was reviewing tactical simulations in his ready room, Foster contacted him urgently. "Commander, the Zorsian fleet is moving." Ward tensed. "Attack formation?" "No, sir. They appear to be withdrawing from the system entirely. Long-range sensors indicate they're setting course for their core territories." It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was clear. The Zoraxians, after centuries of unchallenged expansion, were backing down. Admiral Hale's communication came minutes later, his expression a mixture of disbelief and triumph. "It's official, Commander. The Zorsian High Command has issued a formal declaration recognizing Earth's territorial sovereignty. They're proposing negotiations for a permanent peace treaty." Ward could hardly believe what he was hearing. "They're actually suing for peace?" "It seems our mysterious friends in the Galactic Concorde have more influence than we realized," Hale replied. "Or perhaps the Zoraxians simply recognized that the cost of continuing this conflict outweighed the potential benefits." Whatever the reason, the immediate threat had passed. Humanity had stood against one of the galaxy's greatest powers and not only survived but emerged with its position strengthened. In the weeks that followed, the Valiant remained stationed at the edge of human space, a symbol of the new reality. Other species began making contact, some curious, others seeking alliances, all recognizing that a shift had occurred in the galactic power structure. Dr. Reed continued refining the quantum phase disruptor, developing protocols to ensure its power could never be used irresponsibly. Lieutenant Foster was promoted and given command of her own vessel, tasked with exploring regions of space previously considered too dangerous for human ships. And Commander Elias Ward found himself increasingly drawn into diplomatic matters. His first-hand experience with both the Zoraxians and the mysterious Galactic Concorde, making him an invaluable resource as humanity navigated its new position in the galaxy. 6 months after the initial confrontation, Ward stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, gazing out at the stars. Admiral Hale joined him, the two men silently contemplating the vast expanse before them. "The Vidians have formally requested an alliance," Hale eventually said, "and 3 other mid-tier powers have followed suit. The Zoraxians are honoring the peace treaty, at least for now, and the Galactic Concorde continues to advocate for our inclusion in their conclave." Ward nodded. "And the quantum phase disruptor? Still our ace in the hole, though intelligence suggests at least 4 different species are working on countermeasures. It won't maintain its strategic advantage forever." "It doesn't need to," Ward replied. "It just needed to buy us time. Time to establish ourselves, to prove that humanity deserves its place among the stars." Hale smiled slightly. "And we've certainly done that." He turned to face Ward directly. "The Security Council has approved the construction of 20 new vessels based on the Valiant-S design. They want you to oversee the project." Ward raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm a ship commander, not an administrator." "You're the man who stood against the Zorsian Empire and won," Hale countered. "The man who made first contact with the Galactic Concorde. Your experiences, your insights, will be invaluable as we expand our presence in space." Ward considered this, his gaze returning to the stars. 6 months ago, humanity had been a minor player in the galaxy, tolerated but not respected, permitted to exist at the whim of greater powers. Now, those same powers were seeking alliances, offering treaties, acknowledging humanity as equals. All because one ship, one crew, had refused to accept the limitations others had placed upon them. "I'll do it," Ward decided, "on one condition. The Valiant remains active, continues its mission of exploration and defense." Hale nodded. "Already arranged. Captain Torres will take command." She's been approved by the Admiralty. Ward felt a momentary pang at the thought of leaving his ship, but it was tempered by pride in his first officer's promotion and the knowledge that the Valiant's legacy would continue. "There's something else you should know," Hale added. "The Galactic Concord has officially invited Earth to send representatives to their conclave. The first meeting is scheduled for next month. The President wants you to lead the delegation." Ward turned to him in surprise. "Me? Surely a professional diplomat. Would be eaten alive." Hale interrupted. "This isn't about protocol or diplomatic niceties, Elias. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity has earned its place at the table. No one embodies that more than you." The weight of responsibility settled on Ward's shoulders, but there was excitement too. Humanity had taken its first steps into a much larger universe, faced its challenges, and proven its worth. Whatever came next, they would face it not as supplicants begging for recognition, but as equals demanding respect. "Tell the President I accept," Ward said, his gaze returning to the stars that no longer represented distant, unreachable domains, but the future of his species. It's time humanity took its place in the galaxy. As the Valiant continued its patrol along the borders of human space, Ward couldn't help but reflect on how quickly everything had changed. In the span of a few months, humanity had transformed from an insignificant species barely tolerated by the galactic powers to a force that had reshaped the very balance of power throughout the stars. And it had all begun here, with one ship refusing to accept the limitations others had tried to impose upon it. One crew willing to risk everything to defend their right to exist. One moment of defiance that had cascaded into a new era for all of humanity. The stars had never seemed brighter, the future never more promising. The galaxy awaited, and humanity was finally ready to claim its place within it. They dominated galaxies effortlessly, Ward murmured to himself, until a human warship stopped them in their tracks. And nothing would ever be the same again.